Was Daenerys always destined for madness in the books?
Let it be fear.
That question is still debated amongst the Song of Ice and Fire fans today, especially after Game of Thrones rushed her descent into madness.
I tried to make peace with Cersei. She used their innocence as a weapon against me. She thought it would cripple me.
In the main series of novels, her character arc is actually a lot more complex. George R.R. Martin manages to weave Daenerys' trauma, prophecies, magical experiences, and the legacy of her family's madness into her actions, blurring the line between PTSD, magical influence, and genuine instability. Thus, if Dany is going mad in the books, it will be as a result of all of these factors combined. And we do see a lot of early signs of her troubling behavior from the very first novel of the series. One of the most striking examples of this is how Dany reacts to the death of her only brother, Viserys. In Vaes Dothrak, her husband Khal Drogo kills Viserys by pouring molten gold over his head, the promised golden crown for all of his threats. But it's Dany's reaction that's particularly interesting, both on the show and in the novels.
He was no dragon. Fire cannot kill a dragon.
In the novel, her reaction wasn't much different. The only true difference is that Dany thinks the line instead of saying it out loud. It says, "The sound Viserys Targaryen made when that hideous iron helmet covered his head was like nothing human. His feet hammered a frantic beat against the dirt floor, slowed, stopped. Thick globs of molten gold dripped down onto his chest, setting the scarlet silk to smoldering, yet no drop of blood was spilled. He was no dragon," Dany thought, curiously calm. Fire cannot kill a dragon. The fact that Dany reacts to her brother's death so calmly and then rationalizes it as him not being a true dragon sort of hints at a cold, distant form of dispassion that could later on materialize into madness. In this particular moment, it doesn't really seem like madness on Dany's part, because Viserys had tormented her for years, even going so far as to threaten her unborn child on the day that he died.
He can keep the baby. I'll cut it out and leave it for him.
However, this is a very important turning point in Daenerys' character arc, because despite everything, Viserys was still her only remaining brother. Even though he treated her harshly towards the end, he had also loved her once and treated her kindly. And yet Daenerys reacts with a sense of calmness as she watches him die. Her remark that he was no true dragon is more of a hint of how she views herself than it is about how she views Viserys, prioritizing her own magical identity over any personal sentiments that she shared for him. In this moment, Daenerys sees herself as a dragon, and she isn't just losing a brother that she despised. She's embracing an identity that's much larger and far more dangerous. Which brings me to the next moment of madness in Dany's story, when she burns Mirri Maz Duur at the pyre. In the TV show, this burning seems 100% justified because Mirri Maz Duur is a witch that tricks Dany into killing her lord husband and her unborn son.
My child was innocent.
Innocent? He would have been the stallion who mounts the world. Now he will burn no cities. Now his Khalasar will trample no nations into dust.
However, in the books, even though Mirri Maz Duur still ends up killing Drogo and Rhaego, it's a lot more complicated than on the show, because there are subtle hints that Dany knew exactly what she was getting herself into. After Drogo falls from his horse, he's dragged into a tent and has to be healed with magic. Dany sends for Mirri Maz Duur to come to her, begging her to perform a ritual that could save his life. And Mirri does. There is a price, the god's wife warned her. You'll have gold, horses, whatever you like. It is not a matter of gold or horses. This is blood magic, lady. Only death may pay for life. Death? Dany wrapped her arms around herself protectively. My death? No, Mirri Maz Duur promised. Not your death, Khaleesi. Dany trembled with relief. Do it. In this moment, there is a subtle hint that Dany knew that Mirri Maz Duur was referring to the death of her child, which is why Dany immediately wrapped her hands around her belly after Mirri spoke of a sacrifice of life. It's implied that Dany knew that she'd need to sacrifice Rhaegal's life in order to save Drogo's, and that she made that choice when she allowed Mirri to continue with the ritual. Later on, after the child dies, Mirri even tells her that she knew the price very well, and yet she still chose to be blind to it for her own selfish desires. You warned me that only death could pay for life. I thought you meant the horse. No, Mirri Maz Duur said. That was a lie you told yourself. You knew the price. Had she? Had she? If I look back, I am lost. The price was paid, Dany said. This moment right here is actually proof of what I said before about Dany, that she's willing to prioritize her magical identity and destiny over any personal bonds or sentiments. In this moment, that idea is made clearer because of the ambiguous nature of Dany and Mirri Maz Duur's relationship, one which insinuates that Dany knew the sacrifices that needed to be made in order to save Drogo, and yet she was willing to pay them to get what she wanted. That's what makes her burning Mirri Maz Duur a little bit darker in the books.
But it's not your screams I want. Only your life.
In A Game of Thrones, the novel, this decision is not just about retaliatory justice. It's actually a bit more disturbing because it's insinuated that Dany knew exactly what she was getting herself into with Mirri, and yet she burns her anyway. It's a bit more chilling and darker to know that Dany maybe sacrifices this lady for her own mistake, shifting the blame to someone else in order to justify her own misunderstanding. So is that a hint of what's to come for Daenerys? Will she do the same when she comes to Westeros and has to justify murdering her enemies?
Your Grace, you start beheading entire
I'm not
families.
beheading anyone. Dracarys.
In A Dance with Dragons, her bloodlust grows stronger as she conquers the cities of Slaver's Bay. As she advances her cause towards Meereen, she leaves a trail of death and fire behind her. And each time, she feels more justified and right about what she's doing. But is she right?
Everywhere she goes, evil men die, and we cheer her for it. And she grows more powerful and more sure that she is good and right.
On the road to Meereen, the slave masters nail 163 slave children along the road to the city, and Dany wishes to see each and every one of their faces as she heads into the city. When she goes to Meereen, she orders the same thing for the slave masters, without giving any of them a fair trial. But since these are slave masters, there isn't much of an outcry for what Dany is doing here. After all, these men participated in the brutal practice of slavery, so no one would try to weep for them or speak up on their behalf. But in the TV show, Dan and Dave actually did something very interesting, because they created a character that does weep for one of them, Hizdahr's Lorak. On the show, Daenerys kills Hizdahr's father, who was actually a nobleman who spoke up against the act of slavery.
I pray you'll never live to see a member of your family treated so cruelly.
Your father crucified innocent children.
My father spoke out against crucifying those children. He decried it as a criminal act, but was overruled. Is it justice to answer one crime with another?
Although this scene is an invention of the show, I think it still says something that's true about Daenerys' character even in the books. When Dany feels like she's justified in her actions, she's very quick to suspend principles like justice and fairness in order to behave in brutal and unjust ways. And she does a similar thing in A Dance with Dragons too. In this novel, Dany's unsullied soldiers are being killed by the Sons of the Harpy in Meereen. And in one incident, 2 of her soldiers are killed by poison in a wine shop. Dany retaliates by having the wine shop owner's daughters tortured. And it's quite interesting to see how she justifies this decision to herself. She thinks they will have the dragon's mercy. Skahas, I have changed my mind. Question the man sharply. I could question the daughters sharply whilst the father looks on. That will wring some names from him. Do as you think best, but bring me names. The man's daughters in the scenario are completely innocent. There is absolutely nothing to suggest that they were a part of this conspiracy, and Daenerys doesn't even consider giving them a fair trial or questioning them fairly. Instead, her first instinct is to torture them in order to produce names. Again, in this situation, she believes that she is doing the right thing, avenging her soldiers and finding the assassins. But in the process, she is torturing and killing innocent people. To you, does this sound like the actions of a just and reasonable ruler? Or is it a hint of the bloodlust of a mad tyrant? Who knows what the sort of behavior could lead to for Daenerys, especially when it's coupled with a magical prophecy, as it is in the books. In the novels, magic plays a very important role in making Dany feel righteous and justified in a lot of her actions and behaviors. For example, it is because of her dragon dreams that she finally decides to stand up to Viserys and then react so coldly to his death, as she believes that he is no true dragon. It is also her dragon dreams that make her certain that she has to burn Mirri Maz Duur in order to awaken her petrified dragon's eggs. Daenerys also has visions in the House of the Undying that plant seeds in her mind of her becoming a liberator and savior in Slaver's Bay. But these visions omit the chaos and disaster that she causes as a result of those actions. In parts of Essos, rumors cast Daenerys in an unfavorable light, with the widow of Vogaro saying, I have heard it said that the Silver Queen feeds her dragons with the flesh of infants, while she herself bathes in the blood of virgin girls and takes a different lover every night. There is also the role that Quaithe plays in Daenerys' story, appearing to her often as a mirage. Daenerys is the only person who can see Quaithe and the only person who can speak to her. And when Quaithe appears before Daenerys, she always comes to warn her with cryptic riddles and prophecies. She often tells her, Hear me, Daenerys Targaryen. Remember who you are. The dragons know. Do you? Things like this in the book are quite eerie because Quaithe vanishes as suddenly as she came, leaving Dany unsure if she was only a dream or reality. In fact, Dany herself often wonders if she is going mad for seeing Quaithe in places where she could not possibly be. And the fact that Quaithe says things like, remember who you are, and then compares Daenerys to her dragons and Targaryen heritage almost sounds like she's trying to encourage Dany's ruthless behaviors. The repeated stress on Dany's dragon identity in Quaithe's prophecies reinforces the idea that if Daenerys tries to deny the fiery Targaryen side, she will fail in her mission to conquer Westeros. And that could play a big role in Dany's descent into madness in the books.
For dragons are fire-made flesh, and fire is power.
Apart from prophecies though, there's also the fact that Daenerys' Targaryen blood is associated with dragon dreams and madness. Throughout history, Daenerys' ancestors have occasionally leaned towards behaviors that could only be described as madness or insanity. Whether it was Aegon V, who burned half of his court in Summerhall because he believed that it could birth dragons, or Aerion Targaryen, who drank an entire cachet of wildfire because he thought he was one. Dany's family line is filled with figures who started off sane and then veered into madness as the years went on. Even Daenerys' father is a great example of someone like that. Aerys was quite sane and rational in the earlier years of his life. In the world of ice and fire, the Maesters write, the young king was lively and active in the early years of his reign. He loved music, dancing, and masked balls, and was exceedingly fond of young women, filling his court with fair maidens from every corner of the realm. However, when he ascended the Iron Throne, he seemed to descend more and more into madness. Perhaps he became more insane the longer he sat in power, or perhaps he was just mad from the beginning because of his blood. But either way, he became more insane the longer he wore the crown. Will the same fate await Daenerys? She too is very sweet and innocent in the beginning of the story, but the more she gains power, the more violent and ruthless she becomes. Will she descend into madness and paranoia just like her father? In Game of Thrones, Daenerys' descent into madness felt forced and rushed because Dan and Dave stripped away a lot of the foreshadowings that were in the books, moments that gave her arc its depth. They removed the ambiguity surrounding Daenerys' relationship with Mirri Maz Duur, omitted Quaithe from the story and all her cryptic warnings about Daenerys' future, and they left out the torture of the wine cellar and his daughters, ignoring many of the morally grey moments that shaped her character and that could have made this arc a lot better. That's why her burning of King's Landing felt like it came out of nowhere. In the books, however, there are layered and unsettling hints that Daenerys is either already unstable or on a path that could lead her into insanity. And these moments are carefully set up and fascinating to unpack, painting a much more complex picture of who she is becoming in the narrative of Ice and Fire. But all of this is just my take on her character. What do you think? Let me know down below in the comments section, and if you liked this video, then click the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel for more content in the future. Thank you so much for watching this video. Peace.